So let me ask you a question. Why would an innocent person ever confess to a crime they didn't commit? I mean, it sounds impossible, right? Like something straight out of a movie. But the truth is, the psychological reality is way more common and honestly a lot more disturbing than you might think. We're going to dig into the psychology that makes the impossible possible.
I must have done it. Just let that sink in for a second. Imagine the state of mind you would have to be in to say those words about the murder of your own child. That wasn't just a slip of the tongue. That was a complete surrender of his own reality. Billy Wayne Cope, a father drowning in grief, somehow came to believe he was capable of the unthinkable. And his story? Well, it shines a giant spotlight on a fundamental flaw in how we often pursue justice.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It's an absolute nightmare. The first morning, he makes the most horrific discovery of his life. For more than a day after that, he's interrogated relentlessly, insisting he's innocent. But after all that time, no sleep, under immense pressure, and then being told a machine, a polygraph he trusted, proved his guilt, his own mind just broke. It turned against him. He confessed. He even reenacted the crime on video. And yet, the science, the cold hard DNA evidence, was crystal clear. He didn't do it.
So this is the core of it, right? This is the impossible question. How does a person's absolute certainty of their own innocence completely crumble? How does a confession filled with what sounds like vivid detail come from a mind that has no actual memory of the event? This isn't just about someone lying to get out of a tough situation. It's about a truly terrifying psychological process.
And it turns out the answer often lies in the interrogation room itself, specifically the method used by police. You see, there are two vastly different philosophies when it comes to interrogation. You've got the Reed model, which is really common in North America, and then you have the Peace model, used over in the UK and a few other places.
And this chart just lays out the fundamental difference perfectly. The Reed model starts with an assumption of guilt. Its entire purpose, its goal, is to get a confession. The Peace model, on the other hand, is all about investigation. It's a search for facts, not a predetermined outcome. One is basically a psychological pressure cooker, the other is a fact-finding mission. Now, look at these 9 steps. This isn't just an interview. It's a psychological system designed to wear a person down. You're isolated. You're told you're guilty over and over. Every time you try to deny it, you're shut down. Then they offer you these face-saving excuses for why you might have done it. The whole point is to make confessing seem like the only logical and, frankly, the only possible way to ever leave that room. Okay, now contrast that with the Peace model. Just notice the language they use. Engage, explain, account. It's about building some rapport, letting the person tell their entire story without being interrupted, and then you evaluate it and compare it to the evidence. The goal here is to find the truth, not just to get a signature on a piece of paper. So, okay, we've got these two very different methods. One seems pretty coercive, the other is more investigative. But what's the actual impact? I mean, does one really produce more false confessions? Well, researchers designed an experiment to find out, and the results, they are absolutely staggering. So here's how they set it up. It was actually pretty simple. They had some participants cheat on a task with a research partner, which made them guilty. And they had another group who didn't cheat, making them innocent. Then, every single participant, guilty or innocent, was accused of cheating and interrogated using either the Reed technique or the Peace model.
Okay, now take a look at this. What's really fascinating is what it shows for the guilty people. Over on the left, you can see that both the Reed and the Peace models were incredibly effective at getting true confessions. Almost everyone who actually did it admitted it. But now, look what happens on the right side of the chart with the innocent participants. This is where it gets really scary.
50%? I mean, think about that. Half of all the innocent people who were put through that coercive Reed technique confessed to cheating when they absolutely had not done it. They just buckled under that intense psychological pressure.
In the Peace model, 0%. Not a single innocent person confessed. This isn't just a small difference, it's a massive chasm. The evidence here suggests that while both methods are good at getting guilty people to talk, one of them is profoundly, dangerously flawed when it comes to the innocent.
So that brings us to the next big question, right? Why do people break? And even more than that, why do they sometimes come to actually believe they did it, just like Billy Wayne Cope? This goes beyond just saying what you think they want to hear. It's about something called internalization.
Psychologists have a term for this, a coerced internalized confession. This is what happens when an innocent person, who's usually vulnerable from exhaustion or stress, is so broken down by suggestive tactics that they start to doubt their own memory. They start thinking, well, the evidence seems to be against me. Maybe I just blacked it out. Maybe I did do it. Their entire belief system actually shifts.
So, to prove this could be manufactured in a lab, researchers Kassin and Kichel set up this brilliant experiment. They had people typing on a computer and gave them one simple warning. Whatever you do, do not hit the Alt key, because it'll crash the system. Of course, the computer was programmed to crash no matter what. And then, the innocent participant was accused of hitting the forbidden key. Now, when another person in the room, a secret partner in the experiment, claimed to have seen them do it, the results were just wow. 100% of the participants in that high-pressure group signed a written confession. But look deeper. 65% actually internalized it. They privately told someone else they really had done it. And here's the absolute kicker. 35% confabulated. They invented a false memory from thin air, explaining how they must have accidentally hit the key.
So we've got real-world cases like Billy Wayne Cope. We have the experimental data, and we have a clear psychological explanation. The evidence is just overwhelming that coercive interrogations produce false confessions. So the question becomes, what do we do about it? How do we make the system safer for everyone?
Well, experts in this field have laid out a pretty clear roadmap for reform. First, adopt information gathering techniques like peace instead of coercive ones like Reed. Second, and this is a big one, ban the police from lying about evidence. That's the very tactic that broke Billy Wayne Cope and the people in the lab. Third, videotape every single interrogation, from the second it starts to the second it ends. And finally, we have to educate everyone in the justice system, from judges to juries, that a confession is not infallible proof of guilt.
When you really get down to it, understanding the psychology of a false confession forces us to be much more critical of the evidence we see. It proves that even a person's own words, their own confession, can be built on a foundation of psychological manipulation, not truth. And that leaves us with a really critical question. If a confession isn't foolproof, what other facts that we take for granted in our justice system really need a much closer look?